Here are the top stories for today, the 5th of April 2022. Leaving a legacy, a palace official says President Rodrigo Duterte will leave office with the country having a strong economy despite the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government will double down on efforts to address rising consumer prices to ease the burden of Filipinos as the country's inflation soars to 4% in March. Amend or scrap the party list system, the president says this is to prevent the misuse of the system, especially by the rich and powerful for their gains. And save water before it's too late. The National Water Resources Board makes this appeal even as it assures a stable water supply in Metro Manila for the dry months. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Duterte will leave office with the Philippines having a robust economy. The palace made this assurance saying the country is on the right track in pursuing economic growth. Speaking at the Philippine Economic Briefing today, Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea says the government has shared a better future for the economy despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. He says the Duterte administration is working to ensure a smooth transition and will end it with the country having a strong economic foundation, especially in terms of inclusive and sustainable growth. For the past 6 years, he says, the government has initiated game-changing reforms to revive the economy, which is not only shown in numbers but also felt by the people. While the pandemic has hampered economic growth, Medialdea says that the government's 10-point socio-economic agenda will help the country move forward amid the health crisis. The Duterte administration vows to double its efforts to tame the rapid increase in consumer prices, following the recent rise in the country's headline inflation to 4% in March. In a press statement, acting presidential spokesperson and communications secretary Martin Andanar acknowledged that inflation went up because of the upward trend in transport and fuel, among others. Nevertheless, Andanar said the government's economic managers will continue to keep a tight watch over inflation as the government addresses the national issue of higher prices. National Statistician Undersecretary Dennis Mapa said food and non-alcoholic beverages, housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuel and transport are the main contributors to the faster inflation in March. Average inflation for January to March 2022 settled at 3.4% or above the government's 2 to 4% target band, but within the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas forecast of 3.3 to 4.1%. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas also pointed to oil price upticks in the international market for the surge of the country's inflation rate last March to 4%. Central Bank Governor Benjamin Diokno said monetary authorities have hiked the government's average inflation forecast for this year to 4.3 and 3.6% for 2023. Relatively, Diokno said the economic consequences of Russia's invasion of Ukraine have become a significant headwind in global economic recovery. He said this may impact the domestic economy through slower gross domestic product growth, higher crude oil and non-oil prices, and potential second-round effects on inflation through transport fares, wages, and food prices. Under these circumstances, the BSP will closely monitor risks to the outlook for inflation and growth and remain vigilant against possible effects of any shifts in the public's inflation expectations. The Department of Foreign Affairs vows to help 4 Filipino seafarers arrested in Adelaide, South Australia in March for involvement in illegal drugs. The DFA said representatives of the Philippine Consulate General in Melbourne have talked to the 4 who might face life in jail if found guilty. The Filipinos are in good health and are being treated well by authorities. They were provided with public defenders when they appeared before the Port of Adelaide Magistrates Court on April 1st. Earlier, authorities seized 416 kilos of cocaine worth around 6.4 billion pesos from the 4, touted as the largest quantity ever detected in South Australia. The Australian Federal Police said the drug bust was the result of a multi-agency investigation into organized international crime. The operation stemmed from information that a commercial bulk carrier ship was to be used to traffic illicit drugs into Australia. The Health Department is ramping up the administration of COVID-19 booster shots in the country to provide continuous protection for the people. In a press briefing, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres says countries with higher rates of booster vaccination have seen fewer deaths in recent surges.
Kamakailan, nagkaroon po ng muling pagtaas ng mga kaso sa parehong Hong Kong at New Zealand. Ngunit ano nga pa po ang pinagkaiba ng dalawang bansang ito? Batay po sa graph, makikitang mas mataas ng 38 times ang deaths per million sa Hong Kong surge kung ikukumpara sa New Zealand, at ang pinag-iba, mas maraming boosted individuals sa New Zealand kaysa sa Hong Kong. Batay rin po sa pag-aaral ng Centers for Disease Control and Prevention or CDC, being boosted reduces the risk of hospitalization by 81%. Batay po ito sa kanilang datos nung nasa peak ang pananalanta ng Omicron variant. Kaya muli, para sa lahat po ng eligible na magpa-booster shot na po tayo para tuloy-tuloy ang ating proteksyon laban sa COVID-19.
Interior Secretary Eduardo Año pushed for the placing of the entire country under Alert Level 1. He said this is to expedite economic recovery amid the coronavirus pandemic. In an interview, Año said the government has made adjustments to the requirements to place an area under Alert Level 1, such as lowering the required vaccination rate of the senior citizens from the previous 80% to the current 70%. He also said that municipalities can also be placed under Alert Level 1 based on their healthcare utilization rate. Año earlier said that Metro Manila and many other areas will be placed under Alert Level 1 until June due to the steady decline in the COVID-19 active cases. He, however, reminds the public not to be complacent and strictly adhere to the minimum public health standards. Still ahead, amend or scrap altogether, the chief executive speaks up on his thoughts on the party list system. And the poll body's chief may soon be allowed to declare areas under its control to suppress election-related violence. We are back after a quick break. Keep it here on the PNA Newsroom. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part, get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
You are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective.
I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic, because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte says the party list system is only being used as an electoral vehicle of the rich and the powerful. This as the president renewed his call for the amendment or removal of the party list system in the 1987 Constitution. While acknowledging that some party lists really represent marginalized sectors, Duterte says there are also those who exploit the system to gain power. He said proposing amendments to the Constitution could either be done through Constituent Assembly or Constitutional Convention.
Lahat ng mga mayaman, buong Pilipinas, lahat ng mga milyonaryo may party list. Agawan sila ng party list. Yung ibang walang party list, binibili nila. Pero sa totoo lang, kailangan natin baguhin ng
Incumbent local chief executives have been given until Thursday to form their respective local governance transition team or LGTT. This is according to Interior Undersecretary Epimaco Densing III. He says the LGTT will ensure that the transition of the new officials will be smooth. Included in the turnover are inventory of LGU properties such as land, buildings, infrastructure facilities and their improvements, as well as pieces of machinery. Also included in the list are movable properties such as vehicles, office equipment, furniture, fixtures, and office supply stocks. The transition team must also gather, secure, and preserve all official documents and/or records of LGU official transactions. A turnover ceremony for the incoming local officials will be held on the 30th of June to inform them of the governance assessment report and key challenges.
Kailangan magbuo po ng local governance transition team na pinamumunuan po ng local chief executive, ng lahat ng department heads, representante mula sa DILG, yung local sanggunian na secretary at isang representante mula sa civil society organizations or people's organization para malinaw at malinaw po yung pagta-transition ng lumang o nakaraang administrasyon sa panibagong administrasyon by June 30 of this year.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, wants its chief Saidamin Pangarungan to have an upper hand in identifying areas that can be placed under its control. COMELEC Commissioner George Erwin Garcia explains that right now, only the poll body is authorized to make decisions on the said matter. Under COMELEC Resolution number 10757, any political division, subdivision, unit, or area may be placed under COMELEC control when the peace and order situation in the area may affect the conduct of the elections.
Even contemplating of even authorizing our chairman to immediately issue the order to place a particular area in the country under COMELEC control. Kasi po, kung lagi maghihintay po every week sa meeting ng NBank ng Commission, baka po matatagalan, kinakailangan mag-action kaagad to prevent violence o yung medyo pag-igting ng kaguluhan dun sa lugar na yan.
Meanwhile, Siquijor has been recommended as a COMELEC area of concern or hotspot. Siquijor Provincial Election Supervisor Designate Eliseo Labaria said he wants the entire island to be placed under the yellow category because of intense political rivalry among the candidates for governor. Yellow areas are those with a history of election-related violence or possible intense political rivalry. Meanwhile, Senator Grace Poe called on the COMELEC to expedite its decision on the giving of cash aid to public utility vehicle drivers and operators. Poe was referring to the fuel subsidy, which is intended for the 377,000 PUV drivers and operators affected by consecutive oil price hikes. Under a COMELEC resolution, no public official or employee, including barangay officials and those of government-owned and controlled corporations and their subsidiaries, shall release, disburse, or expend any public funds from March 25 until May 8, 2022. The Land Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, has already requested the poll body for an exemption to continue the distribution of the cash aid. Poe urges the COMELEC to expedite its decision, noting that not even half of these identified beneficiaries received their assistance. The distribution of the fuel subsidy cash was only made 10 days before the implementation of the COMELEC ban. In Davao del Sur, at least 3,008 ducks were culled due to the presence of bird flu. The avian influenza or bird flu was discovered in Barangay San Isidro, Magsaysay. The ducks were transported to the town from President Quirino Sultan Kudarat. As a response, Mayor Arthur Davin immediately issued guidelines for the movement of domestic and wild birds and activated quarantine procedures in all of its municipal borders. He also tasked the barangay health emergency response teams to maximize efforts at the grassroots level and provide assistance to the local government in the implementation of the bird flu prevention program. The Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board in Central Luzon will start public hearings on the wage hike petition filed for workers in the region. The Solidarity of Unions in the Philippines for Empowerment and Reforms filed a petition last February for a 750 peso across-the-board increase for minimum wage earners in the private sector in Central Luzon. The petition cited the need to help workers cope with the rising cost of living amid the high prices of oil and other basic commodities. Geraldine Panlilio, Regional Director of the Department of Labor and Employment and RTWPB Chairperson, confirmed that workers, employers, and other concerned sectors in the region may attend the hearing and present their positions on the wage increase. The first hearing will be held at the Orchid Gardens Hotel along Lazatin Boulevard in San Fernando City, Pampanga on April 20. More stories from the newsroom. The National Water Resources Board appeals to Filipinos conserve water for the dry months. And flying high, Sipalay City is named as the country's kite tourism capital. Details ahead. Stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The National Water Resources Board continues to remind the public to conserve water for the dry months. This even as it assured that there will be no water supply cut in Metro Manila. NWRD Director Sevilio David Jr. said the water level in Gov't Dam on Monday was at 190.75 meters or 10 meters lower than the expected level in previous years. David said they are projecting that the current supply can be stretched until May before it goes down to 180 meters, which is the minimum operating level of the dam. They will prioritize the water supply for Metro Manila residents as harvest season in Bulacan and Pampanga approaches and farmers use less water. On the other hand, the NWRD continues the cloud seeding along with the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System and Weather Bureau Pag-asa. As its short-term solution for possible shortages, NWRD allows its concessionaires to prepare deep wells. The treatment facilities in Laguna de Bay and Marikina River are also on standby. The Philippine Sports Commission hailed the recently concluded mediation between the Philippine Athletics Track and Field Association and EJ Obiena as a historical moment. This as the PSC ended the mediation process between the two parties on Monday. PSC Chairman Butch Ramirez said the mediation is a learning experience for all as it is their first ever foray into sports mediation. Ramirez was glad that the mediation taught him, Obiena, and Patafa lessons for their betterment. The PSC said Ramirez was pleased to see kind exchanges during the meeting as compared to the trade of barbs they had at the height of their rift over liquidation issues. He added that the Patafa-Obiena mediation will surely prepare the PSC for future mediations ahead, even if a new management group is coming in line with the next Philippine president. Among the results of the mediation was that Patafa agreed to endorse Obiena for the Southeast Asian Games in Hanoi, Vietnam. The city of Tipala in Negros Occidental has been declared the kite tourism capital of the Philippines for its efforts to promote the culture of Filipino kite flying. Mayor Maria Gina Rezares received a plaque honoring the city from the Kite Association of the Philippines during the staging of its 8th Barangay Kite Festival over the weekend. Lacson said the declaration affirms the city's efforts in promoting sustainable tourism. He also said the kite is their symbol of hope to recover from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and Typhoon Odette. This year's Barangay Kite Festival, which was among the activities alongside the city's 21st charter anniversary, was the first after it was suspended for 2 years due to the pandemic. The kite flying exhibitions were conducted from March 30 to April the 3rd, while the actual competition was held on March 31 at the Poblacion Beach. Schools in Iligan City are preparing for the conduct of limited face-to-face classes, particularly by ensuring that protocols protecting students from COVID-19 are in place. Arafia Kiram has the story.
Public elementary and high schools in Iligan City are now gearing up for the conduct of limited face-to-face classes for the fourth quarter. The Estenso Comendador Memorial School in Barangay Upper Tuminobo and Suarez National High School recently conducted simulation exercises or SIMEX on limited face-to-face classes as part of the ongoing transition to new normal education. Estenso Comendador Memorial School Principal Andrew Abragan shared that there are 77 students that will participate in the limited face-to-face classes in their school.
Actually, ang Estenso gyud no aduna kami 301 nga population sa learners, pero ang ning samong lang sa ato ang panawagan for the limited to ni apil lang no nag-qualify sa tong limited nga face-to-face classes. Aduna like kita mga 77 and all the teachers also are involved in this.
Abragan also shared their extensive preparation in compliance with the guidelines and checklist of the Department of Education or DepEd. These includes the presence of an isolation room, safety officer, entry signages, hand-washing facilities, and others. Meanwhile, Reyno Almonia of Iligan City Schools Division said that they are committed to ensuring the safety of the students as they strictly follow the guidelines imposed by the COVID-19 Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases.
Saligid mo, committed good ang atong superintendent, si SDS Roy Angelo Igaso, na safety ang inyong mga bata. Kung mubalik na sila din sa eskwelahan, mo ang face-to-face na itong klase, tungod ang protocol sa IETF, na grabe gid sa kay stricto ato gid gisunod.
Almonia shared the salient requirements in order for a school to undergo face-to-face classes. He said that the teachers must be fully vaccinated or had booster shots. For the students, they should be at least vaccinated with 1 dose provided that they will get shots months after. Moreover, Iligan City has been included on the list of the areas that will be under Alert Level 1 from April 1 to 15. For the PNA Newsroom, Arafia Kiram of PIA Iligan City and Lanao del Norte.
Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. Leaving a legacy, a palace official says President Rodrigo Duterte will leave office with the country having a strong economy despite the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government will double down on efforts to address rising consumer prices to ease the burden of Filipinos as the country's inflation soars to 4% in March. Amend or scrap the party list system, the president says this is to prevent the misuse of the system, especially by the rich and powerful for their gains. And save water before it's too late. The National Water Resources Board makes this appeal even as it assures a stable water supply in Metro Manila for the dry months. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.